Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. This week we're doing something a little different. I'm gonna be doing a Q&A about my time here in Scotty, aka Scotland. My good friend Kristen sent me a list of questions to answer for you all. I think she really wanted me to answer them for her, but I'm gonna answer for everyone because it may be helpful for people who are moving here or who are just curious about my experience here in Scotland. So yeah, stay tuned to hear all my answers. Okay, first question is, how did you feel when you first left the US? I felt very scared. I had a lot of anxiety. I remember the day that I left, I was very, very anxious. I woke up very anxious. I couldn't really eat that day. Yeah, I was just very, very, very anxious. I didn't really know where I was going. Like we had never been to Scotland. And so I was just nervous about what, how people would be, how I would like it. Yeah, all the things was just on my mind. And I was just nervous leaving all my family and friends. So yeah, I was just very anxious, very scared. And also, of course, sad, just sad that I was leaving this like bubble of friends and family and just safety and comfort. So yeah, I was just very sad as well. So it was just a mix of emotions, but I think the big one was like anxiety because I just was just very anxious. I couldn't eat and yeah, anxious and sad. The second question is, how do you feel when you go home to visit the US and leave to go back to Scotland now? So how do I feel when I go home to the US? I do still feel a little excitement, like to see my friends and family. Like I do feel excited about that. Now, especially since I have like a lot of nieces and nephews, so it's exciting to see like the babies. I love babies, so it's exciting to see my family and friends. Then it's also like, again, which is weird, like a little anxiety just because it's just, much more faster than Scotland here where we live. So it's just getting back into like just fast. Everyone's always doing something, like everything around you, traffic. Where I'm from in Atlanta, it's just a lot of people in a very small space. So it's just traffic, people, fast. And so it can be a little nerve-wracking also going back. It was crazy when I went back last time in May, right when I landed in the US, there was like a mass shooting in Atlanta. And so I was just like, oh gosh, I was anxious then, like, okay, yeah, anxiety up. So yeah, now I think I feel excitement for seeing people and then a little bit of, underlying anxiety about just getting back into a space. Well, not even, I try not to like fully get into like a space of like just fast doing what everybody else does, but you just feel that around you and it's kind of like a little disorienting when you're coming from such like a calm, serene, like place. And then when I leave to go back to Scotland now from the US, I feel excited too. I'm excited to come back home to Scotland, and I'm always like ready to leave to come back because it's just a lot going on there sometimes. So yeah, I'm always excited to come back home and just looking forward to just like getting back into the peace and the slowness of Scotland. So now very different, yeah, from how when I left to come here initially. But now I'm like excited to come back. I'm, ready to come back to my home. Now this is home and my little sanctuary of peace and slowness. Yeah. Third question is, what are some of the biggest differences for you living in Scotland? I think what I just mentioned, like fast and slow. So the US and Atlanta is very fast. Big cities, are faster, of course. And I don't live in a big city here in Scotland, so excuse me, yeah. The difference, first one is like biggest is just the fastness. So here's very slow, which I love. And I have to walk everywhere, which is a big difference. Yeah, living here, like in Atlanta, I had a car, so I can just get in the car and go wherever I want. I have to walk here, or I take the bus, which is great. I like, because I don't really like driving, so I love being able to just get on a bus and it takes me wherever I need to go, or walking. Everything is kind of, where I'm at now is more walkable, so I can walk to the store, walk, to the coffee shop, walk to the library, just everywhere I can walk or take a bus, which is really nice. And for me, I think now, going back to the US recently, it's much more affordable here. I think even like living expenses wise, just like phone bill is so much cheaper than in the US. Yeah, phone bill, internet, those things are like cheaper. So it is a more affordable like living expenses here, which is great. Like the grocery store, all that stuff is cheaper, like better for you and all those things, which is great. I love that. What else? And of course, like it's not as diverse here as it is in, the US and in Atlanta. But it is more diverse than I had suspected when I first moved here. So, and it could be, I guess it's more diverse in certain areas, because like some places it is mostly like, Scottish people. But like in cities like where we are, it's a university here. So of course it's more diverse. You see more diversity because of the school. But then like the bigger cities like Glasgow and Edinburgh, it is more diverse there as well. So definitely not as diverse as the US, but it is diverse, has diverse chunks around Scotland, which is a difference because I'm used to being around a lot of Black people in Atlanta, so yeah, those are some big differences that stand out right now. Next question is, were you surprised about food and coffee shops over there? Food, yes, I was surprised about like how cheap it is. I was very surprised about that. Because I've always heard, like living in the US, that the food here is better. So you suspect like, oh, it's probably more expensive because it is better. But no, it's cheaper, which is just great. So that was surprising that it was cheaper. And I felt like, yeah, like it is, I guess surprising was like the stuff is not as sweet as like in the US. So it's like, oh wow, this is, usually when you drink soda, it's like very sweet back home, like kind of syrupy, but here it's just not as sweet, it's different. And it's funny now, like drinking soda back home, it's like, oh, this is thick and it's too sweet, so yeah, that's what I was surprised about with the food. And I was also surprised, which our friend told us, that there's not a lot of good food here in Scotland, but there is actually a lot of good places to eat. I think we've had really great food, like you guys, if you watch my videos, like in Glasgow, some places in Edinburgh, even here where we live, we've had like good food. So I was really surprised about that. There's good food, just based on what people told me before, but it's not true, it's false. There is good food here in Scotland. So yeah, I was surprised about that. And then coffee shops, I guess I was surprised that most coffee shops here are just for like, which I don't know, I guess home, they could be too, like for socializing, going to have a coffee with somebody, but more so like the coffee shops I went to in Atlanta were more people were coming there to work and do work and, you know, chill out. But here it's more like social, like you go to a coffee shop to sit and have coffee with somebody and talk and catch up. There's not a lot of people in the coffee shop I see are just sitting there working. Usually it's just me and someone else maybe, but it's not, yeah, that way. But there are coffee shops where I see people who are working, not really having a, you know, coffee date or anything. So that was kind of surprising, but it's nice to see, yeah, that it's more of like a social outing here. Next question. How do you like the grocery stores and why? I love the grocery stores, and I love them because they're cheaper. I'm very frugal, and so I love that everything is cheaper than the US. I love that everything is kind of fresh. A lot of, here in Scotland, it's like a lot of local produce, so a lot of the stuff is grown, you know, in Scotland. So I love that. Yeah. What is comparison of travel like in the UK versus US? She said think flights, public transportation, biking, etc. Yeah, like I said earlier, there is more of a robust and, you know, better, I feel like, transportation here, especially from Atlanta, because Atlanta doesn't really have a lot of good transportation. It's horrible. So you have to drive, you know, there's no, like, there are buses, but from what I've heard, they're not good. They're not on time. It's just not good. But here, there's buses. Sometimes they're late too, but they're very consistent. They're clean, they're safe, you know. The trains here are the same, clean, safe, and then they're really, I love going on the train. Like, you know, it's really relaxing, and to see, you know, all the countryside and everything is really beautiful. So I really love, like, the trains. And then, like, in Glasgow, they have the subway too, which is great. And then biking here is really big too. Like, there's bike lanes and all that type of stuff. And actually, a friend here gave me a bike, which I have been loving. I actually was like, this week was like, oh, I really enjoy this. I think I might really get into doing it like daily or weekly. And so that's a thing that I think, but I think a lot of places like in the US are starting to have that too, like bike lanes and yeah, making that more accessible. But here, like, I know that people get like discounts, and I don't know, with their jobs, there's like benefits of like riding a bike rather than driving, and taking the train and the bus rather than driving. So they're very like environmentally conscious here. So that's the thing I think that plays into like benefits of using, you know, the bus and the train or your bike, which is really great. So I love that it's just all types of modes of transportation, and they're all great. Yeah. What is one thing you wish you could have told yourself a year ago before you moved? I probably would have told myself it's gonna be okay. Relax, you know, like, it's gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. Yeah. Because like I said, I was very like anxious and just, yeah, anxious. So I think, yeah, I would tell myself it's gonna be okay. You'll be fine. You'll love it and you'll enjoy it, and it'll be different, but it'll be good. What's the difference between an American kitchen and a kitchen in Scotland? That's random, Kristen. No. Maybe she's thinking about, in my kitchen, the refrigerator is very tiny. It's like a little box. And my freezer is also tiny, because it's not, I have two separate, like a fridge, and then I have this separate like kind of freezer. And they're both kind of small. So that is a big difference. Used to like big fridges to carry everything you need. But here I have to kind of shop week by week because everything can't fit in my fridge, which is probably good, you know. So you use what you buy rather than just buying stuff just because it looks good, because a lot of it wouldn't be able to fit in my refrigerator. Like my kitchen doesn't have like top cabinets, it just has lower cabinets, and then the refrigerator is like kind of built into the cabinets, which I like, which is also different from back home. And it's not as big, you know, everything is not just like super size. I feel like things here are just compact and what you need for what you need. So that's like, what has been the hardest thing about living in Scotland? I think just being away from your friends and family. I think that's probably the hardest part. Because when we think about like back home, what we miss is like the people. It's not really like, oh, I miss, and sometimes the food. I guess the food, yeah. Like the fast food and, you know, all the different types of food that you're used to back home. But I think when we think about it, it's like, oh, we really miss our friends and family, not really like living there per se. So I think the hardest thing is just being so far away, and then, you know, we're on 2 different time zones, so sometimes it's hard to talk and connect with people because, you know, they're 5 hours. We're 5 hours ahead, so yeah, that could be hard to kind of stay in touch with people. But, you know, we're grateful for apps like Marco Polo and, you know, voice memo. So sometimes if you just can't talk, you can just do those things and kind of catch up. But yeah, that's probably the hardest thing living here. And what has been the easiest thing about living in Scotland? For me, I just remember like days where it was hard, you know, like where I was missing home, or in the winter when it's just very dark here. Oh, actually, I will say that about hard. We'll go back to the question. I think one of the hardest things is like the winter when it's like goes dark at 3 p.m. That could be kind of disorienting. And a lot of people when we moved here were like, you know, be prepared. You know, you might have, you know, seasonal depression, take vitamin D. And then if you have like those lights, you know, I forgot what they're called, like the little lights that help you with seasonal depression. They were like, you know, make sure you're on it because it gets really sad during that time. And it wasn't as bad as we thought, but it is like hard. It is kind of like, okay, it's like you have, you know, the sun comes up at 9 a.m. and then goes down at 3, and it's just not a lot of hours of the sun. Then sometimes it's very gloomy. It's not even sun, you know. But so that could be hard. Sometimes the winter was a little hard with that. But I think also we'll see with, well, I guess, yeah, we'll see this in this flat, because the flat I was in before, as y'all saw, is just very dark already, kind of dungeon-like. So it didn't really help, you know, like me in that. And I was working from home, so it was just hard to escape. And then it was very, you know, I was in a village, so it was just very like no life around because it was just so quiet and just, so that was hard. So that's one of the hardest things so far about living in Scotland. But the easiest, I would say, that helped me, I was saying like in days where it was hard, was like if I was going on the bus and just riding around, it's just so beautiful. Like the scenery is beautiful to me. I love like animals and seeing animals. So you always see sheep, you'll see cows, you know, and to me it's just like, it's just so beautiful. And then there's hills, and so it was just always like a comfort to me when I'm driving on the bus and I just see just beauty all around me. Even walking, you know, and you see beauty and water, and it's just, yeah, it's just beautiful. So I think that's like the easiest thing here, is just having that just beauty around you that helps you just, for me, stay calm, like be calm and just know that I'm here in this beautiful place and it's gonna be okay, you know. So I think that's the easiest thing for me. And then, what is your experience been like being a Black woman in Scotland culturally, finding hair stuff, safety, etc. My experience of being a Black woman in Scotland, it's been great. I mean, it's been good. I was nervous about that, you know, because coming from the U.S. and the south part of the U.S., you know, you deal with a lot of just, you know, racism, looks, people treat you, some people just are, it's just weird, it's just a different culture. So here, of course, just like living in that environment your whole life, you assume like, oh, okay, I'm coming here to a place that's majority white and I'm gonna be a minority again. So I was nervous about that, but the people have been really kind. Yeah, I haven't felt, you know, like any prejudice or anything like that, or hate or anything. Even being by myself or being with my husband, who's a Black man, everyone has just been very kind and nice, and yeah, like just treat you normally, which is really, really good and really comforting to have that. Even like, you know, traveling other places in the UK, we went to London, which was of course very diverse, fine, and just other places in Europe, just be people just being nice and not really experiencing the looks and the, you know, stuff sometimes you can experience as a Black person. Yeah, it's been really surprisingly good. Finding hair stuff has also been very great. Boots has been a great resource for me. I love Boots. They have a really good, you know, natural hair section that has like all my brands back home, like Camille Rose, you know, Shea Moisture, yeah, Mielle Organics, all those types of brands. They have them at Boots. And then sometimes at TK Maxx I'll find other brands like Eco, Styler Gel, stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's been great having like, and I was surprised about that, having so many different products for, you know, Black hair, which is great. Safety, definitely feel safe here. Very safe. You know, here they don't have guns, and yeah, so I feel really safe. I know a lot of my friends, I used to call them walking, you know, at night, going somewhere or something. They're like, you're by yourself? I'm like, yeah, I feel really safe walking around, doing things, going, you know, by myself places. I just feel really safe. Yeah, it's really safe to me. Okay guys, this is the last question. Okay, what do you feel like God has taught you this past year? I think God has taught me that He is with me, that I can trust that He is with me, you know, wherever I go, whatever journey I'm on, He is with me, He's there with me. There have been plenty of times this year that I have been reminded of that, and it's brought me to tears just thinking about, yeah, how faithful God is, and how we just don't know. We just really don't know, you know, what life is going to bring and what we're doing, really. And we think we have control, and we think we know, you know, what's best, what's to come, what, you know, what to expect, but really don't. And God has shown me that He's here, He's with me, and that it'll be okay. You know, like even getting this new flat was just God seeing me, seeing us, and knowing our needs and providing it. And yeah, which has just been just a blessing, just being here. I always just, because I love this flat so much, I love my home. So just like, even I'm just laying in the living room and I'll look up and see the beautiful, you know, trimming in my living room, and I'm just reminded of how God is so faithful, and He's provided this place that He knew that we needed, that I needed to feel safe and feel good living here. Yeah, and for it to be in our budget and all these things that have happened this year, and just to have this place that God has put us in, it's just been just a reminder that He's with us, He sees us, and we're gonna be okay. And so I think that is a big thing that I've learned this year. It's just to trust that He has us and He sees us, and we'll be okay. So yeah, That is all the questions, guys. How many minutes? This 27 minutes. Wow. Okay, guys, that's all the questions. Thank y'all so much for staying around for 30 minutes to listen to me answer those questions. Thank you to Kristen for sending me these questions and helping me reflect on this year in Scotland. So yeah, thank y'all and see y'all next time.